200年以上の歴史を持つ牧場地帯に彼の工房はある。その工房からハイテクノロジーによって最先端のデザインが生み出されている。彼はまず初めてのベースを試作した頃から話を始めてくれた。
My interest in headless instruments evolved from this experience of making this product here. And what I found was that, and let me backtrack a second, I came from being a furniture designer, being a designer of chairs. And ergonomics are very important in that. That is, the way a chair fits your body for comfort is very important. So this was kind of a bias that I took into my work on basses. A lot of the features of the curves and so on of this instrument are very much involved in making it comfortable. Now, I wanted an instrument that would balance, and you can see that this instrument balances quite well, but it's not easy to make a bass that balances, and the reason is that this neck is very long, and now you have tuning hardware made out of metal, fairly heavy, on the end of this long neck. Tends to make the neck want to go down. The reason this instrument balances is because there's a weight placed in the very back end of the body here, which as efficiently as possible counterbalances the weight of the tuning machines here. Well, maybe you can begin to imagine how my mind worked. I said to myself, why do I have a weight here and a weight here in order to counterbalance that weight that's there? And it suddenly flashed that there was no real reason why I couldn't take this tuning machines here and place them on the body. And that led me into this first headless instrument that I guess I started work on in 1977.
It was 1987, and I was working at a music store in Boston, and they had them in the store, and I started as working part-time there, and somebody wanted to. It was in a case, and somebody wanted to try it, and I took it down for them to play, and they broke a string on it, and so I had to put a new string on it, and that otherwise I would have never looked at I would have never paid any attention to the tremolo mechanism that was on it. As far as I knew, until I took it out of the case and actually looked at it, it was just another tremolo, And when I had to change a string on it, I realized there was something else going on there than just, a standard Strat or Bigsby tremolo. And prior to that, actually, I had a Kahler. I had a Stratocaster with a Kahler on it, and I picked it up, and it was the L series, which is the small black one, and I remember thinking that it was absolutely not what I wanted in a guitar when I first picked it up, because it wasn't wood, it didn't have a headstock, it went against, and then I put a new string on it, and I started playing it, and I became obsessed with it to the point where I actually took out a bank loan and bought it, because I couldn't afford to buy it. So I had to have it, and I think that's the last time that was the first time and the last time that ever happened to me with an instrument, that I just had to have it, And it took me a week and a half to figure out how.
This gave me a chance to really redesign the instrument and put the tuning hardware where I thought it belonged, and that's how I first got involved in headless. Now, I can describe some more of the thinking that went into this instrument. I also began to wonder why a body of a guitar was necessary at all. One of the things that designers can do is to begin to think about why some traditions continue and what the logic behind that may or may not be. Now, when you have an acoustic guitar, the body of the guitar is absolutely necessary in order to make the product work. It's how the sound is generated. That body has evolved over the centuries for reasons that in many respects no longer exist.
スタインバーガーのギターの特徴は ヘッド部分を取り去ってしまうところから始まった。そしてチューニングギアをヘッドからボディのエッジに移し、ギターに絶対不可欠と信じられていたボディも取り払われた。そしてボディを取り払う際に生じる合成の現象をグラファイトを素材に選ぶことによって解消した。ブルックリンの小さな工房で生産をしていたスタインバーガーはやがてニューヨーク郊外のニューウィンザーに場所を移した。デザインの仕事に集中するために彼は会社を売ってしまい、今ではギブソンの傘下となっている。
Once you have a headless guitar, and once you begin to have a compact tuning system like this instrument has, and this tuner actually operates with a coin. That's something we changed and put knobs on it, but this compact design doesn't really lend itself to a large body, at least not to my vision. So I combined the sense of how it should perform with a sense of how I felt it should look, built a mold, and molded this instrument out of graphite. This was the first chance to really hear, for me, an instrument made of graphite, and the tonal result was very exciting. I had this tremendous response from musicians on this instrument. They were, at first, they were taken aback. You could remember at that time they had never seen anything like this. It seemed very strange, and you tell them it's made out of plastic, you know, that's all the more reason for them to be very suspect, you know, that this would be something wrong with it or it couldn't possibly be any good. But once people played it, and I could see the expression in their eyes and the smile come on their face when they could hear the ring, the purity of tone that comes from a graphite structure like this, that's when I realized that I had something.
Well, the tremolo itself is I mean that's a major point of the instrument. Is it all right if I play? It won't. It's okay for level. The fact that you can play something like, okay, it's an E chord. Now say this would work for beginners, or it works for somebody that's fairly advanced. I would think you can lock this down and you can maintain the integrity of the chord voicing, but in a new key. I mean and it moves all the strings in tune. So it's you're familiar with the idea of a capo, which is it's a piece that fits on the guitar to what it essentially does is moves the nut to here from there, or any place you want to put it. This works in a similar manner, except you don't have that extra piece to have to clamp on. But not only that, but you can lock it down from E to D to C down to B. And if you listen like to on the second Tin Machine record, it's a song called One Shot that starts out and the guitar is going, which is a trans-trem locked all the way down to B with a wah-wah pedal. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wouldn't have thought of doing it without the Steinberger, which is another nice thing because it generates new ideas because it opens up the possibilities.
I took this particular instrument and showed it to quite a few manufacturers. Fender, Gibson, Ibanez, Music Man, you name it. I tried to get people interested in this guitar. Martin, I can't remember all the different companies I visited. And I found only out of all that group, one or two people in positions of importance that would even really take it seriously. Most people, they really laughed at the idea. They said that no one would want to, I mean, the plastic instrument without a headstock and almost no body, it was no chance. And that, Fender was the thing, and the style of a Fender bass is the only one that was ever popular. And lots of people had come up with crazy ideas before you, and they never worked, and this crazy idea isn't going to work any better. So I had no choice but to find some other way to get this into the market. Meanwhile, this kind of out-of-hand rejection from people in the music business or in the business of manufacturing instruments was contrasted with musicians who were telling me, it's great, I want one, where can I get it?
The other thing is it moves all the strings in tune, so it's almost like a slide. So you can go like... And it's very dependable. If you use a lot of tremolo, you can... Plus, if you break a string, you can lock it, so the other strings don't move. On most existing tremolos, if you break a string, it changes the tension between the bridge and the strings and the spring in the back, because it's a balance. And when you break a string, it throws the balance off, so the whole guitar immediately goes out of tune. If that happens with a Steinberger, you just do that and it's locked, and you can make it to the end of the song or to the end of the set, you know, which is for someone that plays aggressively, which I do from time to time. It's likely that on any instrument you might break a string. It doesn't. I mean, it could be any guitar. It could be almost any gauge. It'll happen.
あの奇妙な形のギターはどのようにして作られているのだろうか。スタインバーガーはその革新の部分を初めて公開してくれたグラファイトボディのモールディングの部分だ。ボディはまず繊維質で形を作るところから始まる。触ってみると布のように柔らかい。このボディがあの硬いギターになることを連想するのは難しい。ちなみに彼はグラスファイバーがギターの形になる工程だけは絶対に見せてはくれなかった。ロールに巻かれたファイバーがミシンのような機械によって編み上げられていく部分だ。それだけは会社にとってのトップシークレットだという。ボディは頑丈にプレスされ、その後アダプターに固定される。アダプターの下にはコーラのプラスチックボトルがあり、エアプレッシャーによってボトルに入った特殊な接着剤がプレスに混入される。その液体がグラスファイバーの繊維の隅々に行き渡り硬くなっていく。しばらく時間を置くと黒い光沢を持つ硬いボディが鋳型から外される。どのギター工場にもない珍しい光景だ。普通は木の香りが工場に充満しているが、スタインバーガーには木の香りがない。
Since I was quite young, I was involved in making things. I was kind of a shy child, I think, and found that I wasn't so interested in sports and some of the other things that my children my age were interested in. But at about age 12 or so, I became interested in the shop that I had downstairs. My father had a little shop where he made things and had some simple tools, and I became very interested in making a table or a chair or some simple kind of item for the house, and I found that I just enjoyed it and spent a lot of time doing that. I think it's been a tremendous advantage for me not to be a musician, because it gives me a much bigger view of what a guitar can be. If I had started to play the guitar when I was 12 years old and I had my Fender or Gibson and I had spent countless hours and learned to love the instrument, then how would I be able to imagine something different? When I first looked at a guitar, or when the idea of designing a bass was first brought to me, I had a completely fresh outlook. And I said, well, why is this and why is that? And you know, most of the time I got very poor answers. A lot of the things that are accepted on a bass or guitar really don't make a whole lot of sense. And so it was the kind of freedom of thinking that comes from having a fresh outlook, I think, has helped me a great deal. The reason that I wanted to sell the company harks back to the fact that originally my idea was to sell my designs, not to start a company. Many people found it hard to understand that I would want to sell this company that had my name and which was successful. But the fact of the matter is that to run a company is a full-time occupation, and I'm a designer. This violin is a project that I started thinking about some 10 years ago. After I became involved in guitars, I began to think about other instruments and try to understand how they worked. And one of the questions I had is, why were electric violins so unpopular? Here, electric guitars were dominating the guitar market, and electric violins hardly existed. There are a lot of violin players in the world. It's not an obscure instrument. It's second only in popularity, I believe, to the guitar. So I asked people, violinists, what was going on? Why were there so few electric violins? And one of the main answers I got was that they're too heavy. They're uncomfortable to play. They don't feel good. Well, an instrument like this is supported by your chin and your shoulder. The weight and the balance are extremely important. I realized right away that a similar, although for somewhat different reasons, a similar situation existed on a violin, that weight out here is weight which is cantilevered and which causes a lot more force down on your shoulder than weight which is carried back close to your neck. So I just felt that a headless violin made a certain kind of intrinsic sense. So I always had it in my mind that I wanted to make an electric violin. I wouldn't have made this if I was still managing the business at Steinberger Sound. I would not have had time. But actually this project was something I could really get going on after I sold the business and other people began to worry about the sales and the finances and so on. So what I did was I developed a tuning system that was very compact and lightweight, and altogether a violin should be very lightweight. A tuning system at the bridge end, so whatever weight it did carry was carried further back. The neck is graphite. This piece here, which really mimics the shape of a violin, and the reason for that is that violin players are used to encountering this, and that's their reference point for playing. So this is an imitation of a violin body where your hand contacts it, but it's easily removable with a single screw, so that it's also possible to access the entire neck, which is something I'm very interested in doing, which is making electric instruments that take full advantage of what an electric instrument could be.
I think that Ned is the next sort of, well, there's Leo Fender, right? And for me, this being like this is the first, the Steinberger guitar is the first major innovation since Leo Fender's original design for the Strat. You know, the Floyd Rose was a modification of a Strat bridge. You know, that to me, that's all. It was just making that concept work better. This is this is a completely rethought, a complete rethinking of the electric guitar. And so I would say that for me, Ned is the next. You know, he's the Leo Fender of his generation. You know, I mean, it's the next. He's the next generation of that sort of guitar design.
I don't want to imitate an acoustic instrument in any way. That's not the object. The object is to innovate an electric instrument that can be everything that it can be.
工場の前の芝生に1枚の看板が立っている。青い部分を見ると、貸家物件と書いてある。 8年続いたこの工場はもうじき閉鎖され、ギブソンの本社があるナッシュビルに移ってしまうのだ。この工場を支えてきた者は会社を辞め、皆別の仕事場へ散っていく。